Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Freedom Nation podcast. And today we have a friend from across the pond, Jan Cavelle. Jan is an entrepreneur. She started off as an entrepreneur, built a business up, ended up leaving that business and kind of creating freedom in what she calls her happy place, which I'll let her explain that to you. So, Jan, welcome to the show today.
Jeff, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me on.
I appreciate it so much. Looking forward to having you on today. Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about your story?
Sure. I started, as some of your audience will identify, with a very brief tangle with the horrid time of being in a job you loathe, or several jobs in my case, because I loathed them. I did them very badly and usually got pushed out. And so it didn't take me long to go the self-employed route. I mean, I was still under 20 when I decided that working for myself was absolutely the only way to go. And so I was very happy doing that, did lots and lots of different things. But I ended up as a single mother through a divorce and
Okay.
extremely broke. And so I had to take things a bit more seriously. So I built a business up from kitchen table startup to a fair size with 50 odd people and a couple of
Nice.
factories.
Now, what
And
type of business was this?
that was a manufacturing business,
Okay. Wow.
a tough gig. Not one I'd encourage people to go into unless they're really have very good reasons. Mine was more
Yeah.
accidental.
Yeah.
I started off just selling and I was buying in and selling, but I couldn't get the supply chain right. So
Okay.
hence going into manufacturing myself.
Makes
But
sense.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was great when it was small. Loved
Mhm.
it to pieces. I sort of under 12 people or so was fantastic. We could all work out a great life.
Mhm.
But after that, things
Yeah.
changed a lot
Yeah.
and
You go from doing the
very
parts of
much,
it that you love to being
yeah.
a den mother at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what anybody would have called me, but I think it was called many things. I'm not sure a dead mother would have been any of them, but but yeah, that's right. You do, and it's a complete change, and it's very tough, and it's
Mhm.
not for everybody. And I
Yeah.
weathered it for 10 years, I guess, at that
Wow.
size, but it just absolutely burnt me out. It
Mhm.
wasn't for me. I should never have stayed there 10 years. But there we are. But yeah, you're right. I am back to my happy place. I work for myself, not as driven as I don't have to be as driven given my age. So I do what I love to do, which is a combination of two things from my past. One of which is writing, because I'd
Wonderful.
started writing articles. I'd always dreamed of being a writer anyway from childhood. So happy times. And
Mhm.
I'd also become involved in a lot of entrepreneurial campaigns, or rather, I'm not sure entrepreneurial campaigns is the right way to put it, campaigns encouraging others to consider entrepreneurship for the UK government and various other people. And so I loved that. I loved opening people's minds to possibility, even if it wasn't for them, that's fine. A lot of people think, I can't do it, I shouldn't do it, and are not aware enough that it could be for them.
Mhm.
So I loved that work and putting that together, which is what I do now with my writing, of sort of opening a gateway, an eye into entrepreneurship for
Nice.
anybody to read, is very much my happy place.
Now, when you write, is it more about trying to convince people to get into entrepreneurship, or is it really just more talking about you came from the field of being an entrepreneur, sharing those experiences, or a combination?
It's a combination, actually. My first
Okay.
book, which I never thought I'd pull off because it was a sort of grown-up dream, but that one was really exploring that that sort of stage you go through that we were talking about of why is
Yeah.
that bigger leap so tough. So that was as much initially for me as sort of a bit of a thesis exploration. Whereas this latest book I have out is very much back to the roots of entrepreneurial campaign, making people aware that they could do it, because it's called Start for Success, and it
Okay.
is. I've tried very hard to make it authentic. I think there are a lot of books written about entrepreneurship, which may be very good, very sound textbook wise, but I wanted people to know what it was really like, the warts
Yeah.
and all.
Yeah. I mean, and let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, you've been successful growing, starting a business, growing a business. I mean, that alone is fantastic. But then you also had that growth phase. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, what do you attribute your original success to, getting past that kitchen table?
Mm. I think it was a combination of things. I think on a skill set wise, and trust me, my skills were limited, had done quite a lot of sales orientated things.
Okay.
And I do think that sales is a mammothly useful skill in life. Even if you're a founder that never ever wants to do sales for fact, but you can have that ability to put forward a vision and communicate with people and all those things. I do think it's a really good asset. So my only skill was useful, particularly considering the lack of the others. But yeah, that and a huge determination because I was really up against it, and the children were very young, so I jolly well had to.
Yeah. Yeah. You had
And
to make it
that can
happen.
be
Yeah.
all you need to get you. It's not all dreams. Sometimes it's just reality.
Now, was that move beyond the kitchen table a conscious decision, or did it just evolve as you were going? Or
It was pretty evolving. It was
okay.
niggling me for a long while. I mean, we started very early. As I said to you, we were manufacturing, and part of sort of half of the processes we started very early because we just couldn't buy it in. But that was still very much cottage industry. And when we grew, it had begun to niggle me. I was thinking, this is ridiculous. Why am I not doing it myself? And then thinking I wouldn't have a clue how. And it came accidentally, believe it or not, because the main person who was making all the furniture we had literally decided to retire overnight. He rang my doorbell one Friday afternoon and said, I'm sorry, I've had enough. There won't be any furniture next week. And I went, what do you mean there won't
Wow.
be any furniture? So a little bit of a steer and a lot of negotiation. And I had a small furniture business as well as my existing one.
Okay.
And then it just was way beyond my expectation, and it had to grow, it had to be
Mm.
practical, it had to be one roof, and the roof had to be paid for, and yeah, so it was sort of organic and forced to
Now
head.
you were sourcing from UK, not
Yeah,
overseas. Okay.
I was buying a few things in from Italy,
Okay.
which of course is a big hub, and you can buy things subsidized from Italy because they encourage furniture manufacturing over there in a way perhaps we don't in the UK,
Okay.
which makes it hard to be competitive.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
without getting too political or on my soapbox about that.
And in today's world with a Brexit and everything else, it's a whole nother animal.
I
So
shouldn't think you can get the chairs anymore. I mean, honestly,
yeah.
I'm
Besides
so
driving
glad
over and
not to
throwing
have
them
a
on your
business.
yeah.
I know.
Oh, I think it's
I'm
just
crazy
yeah.
times.
Yeah, it's so much more complex now, and you would think that everything got easier, but it really hasn't. I mean, it just is more politics that get involved in the whole mess. So
Yeah.
you went built the business up, and you had that 10-year stint. What was the impetus for, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here? And I mean, did you sell the manufacturing business, or how did you
Well,
exit?
firstly, it was sort of really, it was almost 20 years altogether. It was
Okay.
sort of 10 happy years and then 10 growingly unhappy years. I had lots of offers for the business during
Okay.
that time, and I seesawed back and forth. And yes, I'm really interested. Let's have talks. Oh, I don't know, should I? Which was stupid because some of the offers were really good. But in the end, it just got to the pitch, and I just was so far gone. A competitor wanted it, but he didn't want all of it. He wanted the brand and he wanted the people. And so
Hmm.
we sort of did a bit of a fire sale breakup, sold some, bust the rest, which
Sure.
was a really bad deal financially. And everybody told me not to do it. But I
Hmm.
just reached that pitch where I
Yeah.
couldn't.
You just reach a point where
Yeah.
it's more than, yeah, it starts affecting your health at that point.
Oh, it was badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I spent more time at the doctor than I did at the office. It was crazy.
Forget it.
Yeah.
So you decided to retire
Mhm.
and go back to what you love. How did you get, because there's a lot of people in our audience I know that one have said, I want to write a book. And they always have an excuse not to do it. I was one of those. I spent 25 years trained as a writer, spent 25 years working in finance. And it wasn't until a friend of mine called me on my BS that I finally wrote the first book that I wrote. But what was that? Okay, I've retired now, I want to get into writing. How did you make that transition?
I've been dabbling by writing articles as a
Okay.
stress reliever.
Okay.
when I had the business. So that gave me some working with a professional editor, because it was for a business magazine, quite a good one
Nice.
over here, was a very good lesson in writing. Dave was terribly kind to me, so he probably should have taught me a lot more. But yeah, I did that for about the last 6 years I was in business.
Okay.
So, I put in some grunt work, and then, like you, I went on some courses because I thought, oh, I've always been interested in that. And so I did some journal courses and
Hmm.
copywriting courses, and can't remember what else I did, about 4, I think, while I was writing articles, still not with really any great intent. And then I looked at this business. It was still niggling me. I was still thinking, why was that next leap up so hard?
Hmm.
And starting looking at my friends, I thought, goodness, there's lots of them finding that leap up. If this is a thing, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
So I started talking to people, because I was interviewing entrepreneurs as well. And I started almost writing about that. But how it became a book was really because I got, in my investigations and talkings, I contacted a very high-powered entrepreneur I knew vaguely from my days when I had the business. And he said, come down to London and I'll talk to you about it. I said, okay. And he invited me to a very swanky place in London, which was lovely. And I chatted through with him in a rather sort of, oh gosh, okay, sort of way. And then I got out of there and I thought, oh God, what have I done? This is serious. I'm starting to take up all sorts of very important people's time here. I better try and do a book. And I was very lucky, Jeff. I
Mm.
put in 3 submissions, one of
Okay.
which was to Bloomsbury Publishing. They gave me a contract. So hence my
Wonderful.
book career got started. But yeah,
Wonderful.
so
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I mean, I've self-published most of the stuff I've done. So talk about that process of getting a book published. What were the steps you went through to get to the publisher?
it was, I mean, I was ridiculously lucky. I mean, in essence, you should put in your idea. That's true. I'll tell you for why in a second, but you should put in your idea early on and discuss the actual idea with them. The
Hmm.
submissions for a publisher tend to be very complex, and they look at lots of things, particularly for non-fiction. They'll look at your ability to sell it and all sorts of
Hmm.
things, as importantly as for book, which is fair enough. So it's very much, are you going to make a business out of a book? But now I was, in fairness, because I put in my 3 submissions and the Bloomsbury one bounced. Email came back at me.
Hmm.
So I thought, oh, for goodness sakes, I was tired and cross. And so I sent them a tweet. And I said, yeah, your emails aren't working, Bloomsbury Publishing. Seriously. And I got a really nice DM back saying, I'm a junior business editor here. Can I help you? So he gave me his direct email, which of course is unheard of. So
Yeah, that is
yeah.
awesome. Hey, sometimes you got to be lucky better than good. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but you still
At
have
the
to have a
outset of
great
time.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting ride, and it's interesting comparing the two, because I've done self-publishing
Okay.
the second time,
Yeah.
and so I can really understand the pros and cons of both. And I think it very much depends on lots of factors. What do you want out of it? I'm glad I've done both.
Hmm.
There are pluses on both sides.
Sure. And it was funny. I interviewed a gentleman a couple days ago, and we were talking about that. And he said he's published, I think he's published 3 books, one self published, one published through a publishing company. And what he was explaining is that book, I published it through the publishing company, but the new version of it is actually self published.
Yeah,
He kind of leveraged that. Okay, they're going to get me out there from a distribution standpoint, and then okay, now I can actually go out there with the revised
so
edition
yeah.
and sell it
I
more.
think
So
it's difficult. I mean, the first one is an interesting book if you're exploring that particular point, and I think
yeah.
it still stands up for that. But it was just pre-pandemic, and one of the
Hmm.
reasons I did the second one is we've just seen so many changes in business. It's almost unrecognizable, isn't it, in the
Yep.
past 2 or 3 years?
So let's talk
So,
about that book now. So is that one out yet, or is it on the way?
yeah, it's been out about 5 weeks, I think.
Okay, fantastic.
Start for success.
Start for success. So let's walk through that a little bit. What are some of the principles that you talk about in there?
I mean, I wanted over ambitiously to cover virtually all the main things in business. So we go from why do it to mindset to motivation and values and all the basics there, and vision, whatnot. We talk about different ways of raising money versus bootstrapping. We talk about all the marketing aspects, business risks. Virtually everything is in there.
Whew.
But the way I wanted to do it, it was a writing experiment, really. I mean, it's
Mhm.
one of the reasons it's nice to self-publish is you can indulge your own sort of things you want to try. And I wanted to write something that used stories to show, because, that, of course, is what we're taught to do writing wise. So I wanted to write a book which, for example, if you've got a chapter on values, then it sort of explained the whole principles, but then gave a couple of entrepreneur stories
Mm.
to make that come to life, which sounded a lovely idea. But of course, if you're talking about this jigsaw puzzle of nearly all the main business, I hope all the main business things in it, a couple of stories for me to try and find matching stories that were interesting,
Yep.
entertaining. I ended up speaking to considerably more, but I ended up working with 70 entrepreneurs alone, both over research you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so
Might
I
I
had to,
recommend a podcast? It's way easier.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said to me since, why didn't you do a podcast? Or
Yeah,
indeed, why don't you do a podcast with the people in the book?
sure.
Bit mental.
Yeah, that was, I
It's
mean,
made
that's
for
basically what I did with my book. I mean, I had been doing interviews with people for over a year, and I had such a good selection of people that as I was putting the chapters together, I would be, oh yeah, this would be great. Jan's story would be great here. I'm going to drop it in there
absolutely.
and then have it linked to the interview on the electronic version at least, or go up to on the printed version, go up to a main website. But I think it's fun. That's why I record all these
I think it's
things.
fun too.
Yeah.
People fascinate me, and the
Yep.
different entrepreneurial stories are just once I got going and the word got out with PR contacts and everything, the stories that came back, some of them were just extraordinary, as well as for really useful ones that were a good read, but some of them you just went, what?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It fascinates me how people start businesses
mm,
and how they come about starting a business, and people that are wildly successful. And you would never think that would be a successful business, but somebody has to do it.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. No,
I
it's riveting stuff, isn't it? I'm totally addicted.
Yeah, I have a really good friend that had a very successful dog training business and boarding business, and it came all out of her just having a love for dogs
That's
and
become a very
hating
big,
her job.
successful
Yeah.
business, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Dogs in the pandemic has become big business.
Unbelievable. Yeah, cuz and that was for her, that was the
Yeah.
end of her career, was right during the pandemic. She
Mm.
said everybody's getting a dog and then the dogs are not. She said the big challenge was people are getting the dogs and then the dogs are in the house and they're not
Looked after
socialized
properly.
right the
Yeah.
way they should
That
be,
too.
and so then they're almost neurotic like their parents are.
Yeah.
So what's on the docket for you here in the future? What other things are you doing?
I don't know, is the honest answer.
I love
It was a very much bigger project. I mean, to the
Okay.
point, my jigsaw puzzle, to the point I actually halted for about 4 months and I thought, have I gone too far? Is this too big to do? So yeah, I'm still in the recovery phase.
You did retire and all, so
Yeah, I
yeah,
know. What
you got
happened
to
to
do a
that?
little bit of that part too.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. I am just so excited. I can't wait to read the book. So let's transition to the next phase, which is the Fast Five questions. You ready?
I am.
All right. So phase one, question number one. You wake up in the morning, business is gone. You have your contacts still, $500, laptop computer, place to live. What are you going to do first?
Trade. It's got to be, it's back to the same old game. I've got, it doesn't matter what really, but it would
Mhm.
back to the selling trade.
Love it. Fall back to what you know, right?
Yeah, definitely. You work out
And that,
something you love
yeah,
later on, but
fall back
what
to
you
what
know
you know
pays
that
your
actually
bills.
makes money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, second question. What's the biggest business mistake you ever made?
Staying in that business too long,
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I
yeah,
think I've
sounds like
given the
it.
game away on that one, but
Yeah,
it has to be.
yeah, yeah. It's knowing when to cut and run
Yeah,
and take
absolutely.
advantage. What's a good book that you would recommend for our audience?
I can't say mine, can I? So,
Can.
obviously, I mean, I think Start for Success is a good book to read
Yeah.
because I think a lot of experienced entrepreneurs get a lot out of it. Start is a really good inside look at entrepreneurship if you're thinking about it. The other one I fall back on actually a lot, or I did in business particularly, which is a little book not that well known, but called It's a Zoo Around Here by a
Okay.
man called Nigel Risner.
Okay.
And that's about, it's a very simple way of learning to understand communication. But it's a
I
good
love it.
read and
Yeah.
extraordinarily useful. We got into it when I had the factories, and we would incorporate it in our interviews and then stare at people and say, "Oh, you're a dolphin." And they'd look at you and go, "What am I doing here?"
Well, yeah, I don't want to be a dolphin. I don't like dolphins. Okay. What's a tool that you use every day that you might recommend for our audience?
Of course, I'm fairly weak on tech because by the
Okay.
time tech hit, I had other people doing it all for me, so I didn't
Mhm.
have to learn it. So I've come to it late. I mean, as a writer, I use Grammarly a lot, though I
Oh, yeah.
don't think it's as good as it used to be. I don't like it as much as it used to be. It's
Yeah.
got very constraining. I get very bored of having my voice flattened out
Yeah.
completely into analog. I've had to learn to skip it a lot. And I
Yeah.
noticed that actually, because I did use a pro editor who works part time or did work part time, can't remember, first time in Manchester. So he
Okay.
sort of knows his stuff. And I noticed he corrected an awful lot of Grammarly, which was
Really?
quite interesting. So I thought it's not just me. Still
Uh,
use it.
yeah, and I still use it too. And I find that it makes me a little bit better of a writer, but yeah, it will make it bland. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, very.
It takes the zing out of it.
It does. Yeah. And when it first started,
Have
but
you used any of the artificial intelligence type stuff, the chat
I
GPT,
haven't. I
phrase
haven't.
or
My guy who does some of the social media design for
uh-huh.
me actually sent me a long, complicated explanation of it today, Chat GPT,
Yeah.
and said, "You've got to do this." And I wrote rather snappily back, I will, when I get time.
Yeah.
And I know I should. I know I should. Have you?
I tell you, I come from the world you do. I'm a writer. I can do this. I
Yeah.
will tell you, I started writing blog articles using one of the tools. I use one called Phrase, Frase, and I am a convert. I
Really?
am an
Are you?
absolute convert. It What it does is the thing I liked about Phrase, unlike Chat GPT, that one's kind of weird and I don't like it. Phrase helps you to get your thought process right. So what it really does is it goes out and you give it an idea of what you're looking for, and it'll
Yeah.
basically go out and look at everything on the internet, and it comes in and organizes it by topics. And
Mm,
then you can grab those topics and say, okay, I'm doing an article about time management. So I want this heading. And here's a little bit of the information that was out there that it found on the internet. And then you
mm.
just literally hit a button and it creates an article. It'll create about 1,000 to 1,500 word article that gets you about 85% of the way there. And then you have to put your
That's,
own spin
yeah.
on it, and
Well,
then you run
that's
it through
probably a good thing.
Grammarly. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting you don't like the chat one. I
Uh,
mean, he assures me it's very good for brand building, but you
uh,
don't think so?
Whatever. The Phrase, I actually had a conversation with the guy who developed it, and it's
Yeah,
designed for SEO. It was primarily designed for
right.
SEO creation. So
Gotcha.
if you've got a blog where SEO needs to be a major part of it, I don't want to consciously sit there and think of, well,
No, I
what
don't
words should I
either.
put in here? What are my keywords? What should I put
Hate
in
it.
there?
Hate it. I
Yeah.
want to write. I don't want to stuff words.
Absolutely. That's what it does. Is it goes out and it says,
Aha,
"Okay,
that
here's the
bit was,
keywords you should be. Let's
yeah,
get these in here." And then you can go back through and tweak everything. And
got you.
like I said, it gets me about 85% of the way there, which can save. I mean, it might take me a half
Oh,
day to a
yeah,
day to write an
definitely.
article.
Yeah,
Now it takes 15 minutes to create it. And then I can spend that hour to an hour and a half tweaking it
and it's called
and go from
phrase.
there. Yeah, phrase,
Phrase.
frase.io.
I shall look that
So
up.
yeah, it's worth it. It's worth trying it out and seeing how it
Mm.
works. What I would encourage anybody to do, if you do it, they do offer a free walkthrough session. I would highly recommend it because I typically don't like doing that,
No, I
but I
hate them.
learned so much.
Oh, my patience goes.
Oh, I know. I lose patience big time. So I'm
Yeah.
right there
Oh,
with you.
good.
So last question, what is your definition of freedom?
Choice. Being
Choice.
able to make choice of what to do, when to do it. I'm not very money orientated, which probably didn't help when I was growing business, but I want enough, but enough to make the choices
Yeah,
of I'm going to work today, I'm going to write today, I'm going to go to the beach today.
I love it.
I don't mind hard
Absolutely.
work, but I want to be, it's control, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
control freak thing.
That's not control freak. That's just, yeah. I just want, yeah, you want to be able to choose. I love
Yeah.
that idea. It's a great, it was the simplest answer I've ever gotten. I love it. So, Jen, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, wants to get a hold of the book, what's the best ways?
If they have the book name in their heads, they can go straight on Barnes and Noble or Amazon or anywhere like that.
And
But
it'll be right
equally,
below
they
us.
can, yep, simple as that. They can also come to my website, which
Okay.
is www.jancavelle.co.uk.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple, just the name and co.uk. And there are links on the book to various places to buy on the book, on the website, on various places to buy the book as well, if you have forgotten in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, do
Wonderful.
get in touch. Love to hear from you. Anybody who's listening, anything I can do, just shout.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jan. I'm so appreciative of having you on today. A wonderful conversation. I'm so excited for the book. I actually just ordered it while we were sitting here
Bless you.
talking. So
Thank you.
looking forward to hearing it a little bit or listening to it and watching it. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
Jan, thank you so much. Folks, make sure that you get in contact with Jan. Below is all the contact information she gave us, links to the book. Recommend you take a look at it, and let's support Jan by getting out there and buying some of the books and learning what she has to share with us with lots of years of experience growing business. We do this every 2 days or twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel wherever you're at. And if you can, give us a 5-star review and share this with someone else so that we can help out more people in the world. So thanks a lot. We love your support and thank you for being here. We will see you back here the very next time.